Mr. President, before the senator from Tennessee leaves, I want to thank him very much for joining Senator Boxer and me in this effort to really to create a dynamic that will compel us here in the Senate to do our job, And he is somebody who shows time and again the courage to keep out of step when everybody else is marching to the wrong tune. So does Barbara Boxer. And she's shown extraordinary leadership in the Environmental Public Works Committee on which I serve, where I serve as the chairman of the Subcommittee on Transportation and Infrastructure. The idea that she and Senator Vitter, Senator Barrasso, with a little help from me, were able to guide through committee, report a 6-year transportation bill, plan for transportation for our country, roads, highways, bridges, transit systems, and to report it out of committee without an amendment, without a sending vote, and to bring it to the floor of the Senate. If that were that easy, you know, we wouldn't all be here tonight. But there's other legislation, companion legislation needs to come out of the Commerce Committee for, among other things, railroads, freight railroads, for passenger railroads. They have jurisdiction over aviation as well. And we have the Banking Committee has jurisdiction over transit systems. So there's a shared responsibility here, and there's a shared responsibility to figure out how do we pay for all this? How do we pay for this? And we're spending somewhere around $17, $18 billion a year for a federal share for transportation projects. That's roughly about half of what we're spending if you add in state and local monies during the course of a year. And we run out of money. We literally run out of money next month to continue for the federal government to do its share. So what do? Well, I'll tell you what we do. We're not going to continue to put it on our credit card, and we're not going to keep turning around to countries like China and say, how about loan us some more money so we can replenish our general fund, which can replenish the Transportation Trust Fund. Why do we want to be beholden to China? I don't think we want to be in that situation. What we need to do is to summon the courage to do what people send us to do. That's make tough decisions. Senator Corker, I call him recovering mayor from Chattanooga, right? Chattanooga. I was a governor for some years in Delaware, and we have a bunch of former governors and mayors here and some county executives and all, and we bring those experiences with us. And when you're in your state or your city or your county, and you're trying to plan and fund and permit, contract roads, highways, bridges, or transit projects, it takes a long time. And people are watching and wondering, why do we need a 6-year bill, or why do we need predictability and certainty that the money's going to be there for these projects? It's because they take a long time. It's not uncommon to have to spend years planning a project. And the problem with, and the senator from Tennessee said there were 5 times we've done stop and go. I think it's actually, in the last 5 years, there's been 11 times. 11 times when we've done stop and go funding, when we haven't provided the certainty, predictability that state and local governments are begging for, that the transportation authorities around the country pleading for, the road contractors and the folks who build these systems and transit systems, the folks who work on them, the labor unions, everybody's pleading with us to do our job. And what we've done is the House, God bless them, they reported out of the House a bill, unfortunately on a straight party line vote, they reported out a bill that funds Transportation Trust Fund to allow projects to be built through May 31st of next year. Now, some people say, well, that's fine. Well, it's not. It's not 6 years. And it's, frankly, I think Senator Boxer called it kicking the can down the road. We've done that again and again and again, 11 times in the last 5 years. And there's a good chance that when we get to next May 31st, that we'll say, well, it's too hard to make these tough decisions to how are we going to pay for this stuff. And kick the can down the road again provides more uncertainty, more unpredictability. It's wasteful, it's inefficient, it's foolish. We look impotent, and it's not the way for us to do business. What Senator Boxer, what Senator Corker and I, and a number are going to be joining us in this cause, will call for doing, pretty simple. Instead of providing $11 billion for the Transportation Trust Fund from I'll call them a bunch of different sources of revenue, some of them more equal than others, some of them pretty questionable. But in some cases, we're stealing revenues for the next 10 years for stuff that has nothing to do with transportation projects and using that money to fund transportation projects for, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10 months, instead of actually doing what we've done for years, and that's a user-paid system where those who use our roads, highways, bridges, and transit systems pay for them. That's what we ought to be doing. But the problem with what we are, what the House has suggested that we do, is we'll never, maybe never, get back to providing the certainty and predictability we need. Continue to drive up costs, and really say to all the folks that are urging us to do our job, well, we don't have the courage to do it now. Maybe we'll have it next year. That would be, I think, a huge, huge mistake. I like to think of our nation's economy as a car at the bottom of a hill, steep hill. And 5 years ago, our nation's economy was at the bottom of a steep hill. We literally dropped off a cliff. And we lost, between July 1, December 31st, 2008, we lost 2.5 million jobs. The first 6 months of 2009, we lost 2.5 million jobs. Literally the week that Barack Obama and Joe Biden were sworn in as president and vice president, we had 628,000 people file for unemployment insurance. In 1 week, 628,000 filed for unemployment insurance in that 1 week. We know that anytime that number is over 400,000 people filing for unemployment insurance in a week, that we're losing jobs in the economy. And that number stayed over 600,000 for too long. But it started to drop, and it dropped down to 550, 550, 500,000, eventually 450,000, 400,000. And a year or so ago, we got under 400,000. That number now is about 300,000. We are adding jobs. We're adding jobs, and some would say, well, they're not the kind of jobs we want to need. Well, some are, but a lot of them, if you don't have a job, almost any job is better than nothing. And some of these jobs are very good and pay a fair amount of money. But here's where we were. We were that car at the bottom of a very steep hill 5 years ago, and trying to climb up the hill. And it was slow going. But we kept going, and we've added jobs. Sometimes, some months 50,000, some months 100,000. Now we're up to over 250,000 new jobs a month. But we're a car, if you will, we're a car that's climbing that hill, and we're making it to the top. We're at the crest of the hill. We're at the crest of the hill. And we have the option, as we look down, it's downhill now. As we add more and more jobs every month, we have the option of doing two things. One, we can mash down on the accelerator, kick it into high gear, and kick this economy into high gear where it needs to go. Or we can start tapping on the brakes. Start tapping on the brakes. Slow things down. Introduce uncertainty, lack of predictability. And what we offer, I think, in our amendment, Senator Corker and Senator Boxer, myself, and others, what we offer is a better likelihood that we're going to be pushing down on the accelerator next year. We're not going to just put hundreds of thousands of people to work across our country building roads, highways, bridges, and transit centers, systems, but we're actually going to make our transportation system more efficient, which is really, in the long haul, the most important thing, to move product, whether it's from one coast to the other, north to south, or just around our states. That's the key. How do we do this in a more efficient way? How do we make our economy work better? So this works on a couple different levels. We have the option, if we say, well, we're just going to kick the can down the road and into next year, and we'll fund these programs until May 31st. I don't know what's going to give us the courage next May 31st to fund a 6-year transportation program. As Senator Corker said, we got 7 or 8 people that are leaving here at the end of this year, and they're not running for re-election, and they're retiring. And they want to leave here having said, we did this on our watch. It was our job to get this done, and we did. And that's exactly why people send us here in the first place, to make those kinds of decisions. This is not something that Democrats can do by ourselves. This is not something the Republicans can do by themselves. But the thing I'm very proud of, both in committee, is Democrats and Republicans voted for, and the Finance Committee voted for a similar proposal. Not quite a majority, but a very respectable showing. And we've been working and gaining support literally by the day for what we're trying to do. Senator Boxer ran through some of the folks, some of the organizations that are supporting us, a lot of state and local governments, state departments of transportation, folks who build roads, folks who run the road building companies, folks who work and do the actual labor for these projects, the American Trucking Association, AAA, you name it. I mean, there's a huge bunch of people out there who want us to do our job. They don't want us to wait till some other time. They want us to do it now. And we can do that. We can do that. And we're not here tonight to say that this is how we're going to fund a 6-year plan. There are a lot of good ideas, and Senator Boxer ran through some of those. And the idea is to create a situation where we're going to be compelled and we'll actually figure out, of all those options and maybe some other ones, how do we get this done? And the idea of continuing to borrow money over the next 10 years, revenue streams that have nothing to do with transportation, nothing to do with transportation, and pretend that that's going to fund our transportation budget for 5 or 6 months, that is just a laughingstock. We look so foolish doing that. And it's also highly inefficient, as I said. So I wish I could remember exactly what Mark Twain once said, Senator Corker. Mr. President, maybe you can help me on this later. But he once said something like this: do the right thing. That's what he said, do the right thing. You'll please your friends and amaze your enemies. Something along those lines. And for the record, we'll correct it actually. But please your friends and amaze or confound your enemies. And why don't we try that? Why don't we try that for a change? That'd be a great way to finish up here this year. I have a statement I'd like to offer for the record, Mr. President. I want to again thank Senator Boxer. I want to thank Senator Corker for joining me in what I think is a noble mission. And you never take anything for granted, but I think we work it hard enough. We may surprise some people, and in a good way.